was the Olympic Games in London in 1948. That was 68 years ago. And at that time, it was right after World War II. And we went to London, and London, when we got there, was still suffering the effects of having been bombed out. And it was a remarkable thing to be living in what is called the Olympic Village. When you see the Olympics on TV now, I assure you, all those young people there, you don't just walk in out of the blue and start doing the sport. All of those people have been doing it, in some cases, from the time they were little children. If you look at some of these swimmers there, they started swimming competitively when they were maybe 4 or 5 years of age. And in my sport, which was the riding and the show jumping and the cross-country jumping, we started sometimes when we were 4 or 5. And I was jumping horses and doing other horse sports from the time I was maybe 6, 7 years old. And I gave Chris, or one of the staff here, a picture of me, which was taken over 70 years ago when I was jumping a horse over a fence. One of the most emotional things that we had was, and see, I was in several Olympics that I didn't compete in. My youngest brother competed in the Munich Olympics in 1972. And in 1972, I was there, but as a spectator. There was an invasion of the Olympic Village by about a dozen terrorists. And they seized about 10 or 12 members of the Israeli, I believe it was their wrestling team. And they then held them hostage, threatened to shoot them. And the Germans turned over a plane so they could get away. So we went through about a 24, 48-hour period there of absolute terror. And it ended up with several people getting killed. And I would have to say that in a bad way, that was the moment that I most remember. But I'm glad you asked me that, because that's another side of sports that you see nowadays. When I first went there in, say, 1948, 52, and 56, things like that, that sort of thing would never have happened. We didn't have terrorists. We were worried about the hydrogen bomb, but then that never happened. Well, now we get terrorist attacks almost on a weekly basis. My brother was also on the Olympic team, and he was riding, he was only 20 years old, and he was riding in the Stockholm Games. But at that time, he met a girl who was on the British Olympic team named Dawn. And they had never met before. She was a very famous rider. She was the first female rider to ever ride in the male equestrian events. And then I met her there, and I thought she was very nice. But shortly thereafter, my brother and Dawn got married. And he lived the rest of his life and he unfortunately died in 1997 of cancer. But he lived the rest of his life in England. And so I have a whole bunch of nieces and nephews who are all English citizens. But with that, I think I better close my little speech.